Welcome to another episode of Inside the Ice. I'm Shane, as with you always from with Tim. Tim is from the less superior nation of USA, except for when it comes to World Juniors.
I mean, a couple days ago, I believe we just whooped your fucking ass in the champion.
That's why I said, um, um, that's why I said unless it comes to World Juniors. But yeah, USA did beat Canada in the gold medal game. It was a highly contested game. I got a little bit too cocky, hyped Canada up, and they got shut out by the USA in the final. That was a great World Juniors tournament, though, wasn't it, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. It was one of the first in a long time, if not ever, that I actually paid attention to like the scores in the games. And it was just those two teams, the USA and Canada, that I was going to come down to. But I never expected the US to be able to beat Canada with that roster that Canada had.
I mean, it's crazy. Like Canada had literally their entire team was first round draft picks, except for like their starting goalie Devin Levi was a 7th round draft pick, and he played like a first overall goaltender.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about it, and who knows, like maybe it was because of how good that Canadian team was that he was able to pull those stats off. But I feel like if you're any goaltender, you don't just perform at that level without being decent,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you could make the argument that Devin Levi wasn't tested a whole lot up until they played Russia in the semifinals. Levi did not get more than 20 shots in a game. So, I mean, he came into the gold medal game against Canada with 4 goals against in, I believe, 5 games. He had a .975 save percentage and a .80 goals against average. And, I mean, he was playing lights out. But, I mean, he was playing against teams that didn't really give him a challenge.
Yeah, like they beat Germany 16-2, but like you said, he also had 3 shutouts. So like that's respectable too. But it's gonna absolutely fucking kill me to say this because I'm not a BC fan, I'm a BU fan. But Spencer Knight came in clutch in that gold medal game. He got his 3rd shutout of the tournament. And Canada outshot the US in that championship game. But It was 15-1 Canada in the 3rd period. Like, how the fuck do you stop all of those shots?
Yeah. I mean, Canada definitely poured the pressure on. Spencer Knight was unreal. Full credit goes to him. Another person on the American team I want to talk about, Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
That guy is an absolute stud. Anaheim Ducks, 1st round draft pick in 2019. They're going to get a phenomenal player in Trevor Zegras.
Absolutely. And, 18 points in 6 games?
Yeah, and when you combine that with last year, when he played in the World Juniors last year, he scored, I believe, 9 points, or 9 or 10 points last season. 10, I believe, because he's got 18 this year. He's got 28 points in his World Juniors career, and that actually breaks the record from World Junior points by an American. So he has the record. He's beaten guys like Brett Hall. Why can't I think of any other American?
Jeremy Roenick.
Yeah, Jeremy Roenick was another one. Jordan Schrader, actually. That's a name that you don't really hear very often. He had the lead with 27 points, and Trevor Zegras passed him with 28. And he's a great player. Anaheim Ducks, I wouldn't be surprised if Zegras is in the NHL this year.
Oh, absolutely. And he's a college kid. He went to BU. But I believe he played some games for Anaheim this past season.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, I didn't really follow the Ducks last season because they were pretty awful. Yeah, but I mean, I can't say enough good things about them. The Ducks need a good player like Trevor Zegras, and it would be in everyone's best interest if the Ducks made him play this season because he could add so much speed to an aging Ducks team, and he could really he's got that finesse that a hockey player needs to take their team to the next level.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think Trevor Zegras can do that. Yeah, it was awesome for USA. I'm from Canada, so I was not cheering for the USA, unfortunately. But Team Canada, in all respect, we deserve to lose that game. Yeah, Martin said he figured Canada would win the entire thing. So did everyone, man. Canada was heavily favored in the gold medal game. Not a lot of people picked USA to win that game. Canada's problem was the first two periods. They did not come ready to play. USA played a full 60 minutes of hockey. Canada did not, and they ended up losing the game. So, props to USA for sure. Now, Tim, which player in the World Juniors? I'm not sure how much of the World Juniors you followed, but out of all 10 teams that were in the World Juniors this year, which player do you think stood out to you the most?
I don't think the U.S. wins gold without Trevor Zegras. Like, no way in hell. He
Mm-hmm.
absolutely stuck out. But then at the same time, does the U.S. even beat Canada with Spencer Knight in that? Like, he got a
Yeah,
shutout.
yeah,
Like, didn't Canada have like 41 goals heading into the gold medal game?
yeah. They did 41-4.
In 6 games, they scored 41 goals. That's almost 7 goals a game, and then he shuts him out. Like,
Yeah.
so it's between one of those two guys, and it's because of that gold medal game.
Now, some food for thought for you here. Kirby Doc, captain of the Canadian team of the World Juniors, was injured in their pre-competition game, and he broke his wrist. He was out for the entire World Juniors. If Kirby Doc had been healthy and that didn't happen to him, do you think that would have added that extra player, I guess, that would have put Canada over the top in the final?
I mean, you can always say like, what if, but you have to say that Kirby Doc was also the captain of Canada before he broke his wrist, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another player too. The Rangers didn't release Alexis Lafreniere to play with Team Canada. So I
Yeah,
mean, can you imagine how much better that Canadian team would have been if they had Kirby Doc and Alexis Lafreniere on that team as well?
yeah, it just would have made it so much worse of an upset when USA beat him in the gold medal game.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Honestly, one player I think that didn't get as much attention as he probably deserved was Tim Stützle.
In Germany, right?
Yeah, from Germany. Tim Stützle from Germany had an
What
unreal tournament.
wasn't he injured in the beginning? Like, wasn't he one of the guys that Germany was missing when
No,
they?
no, I don't believe so. He was playing in that game that Germany lost 16-2 to Canada. But Tim Stützle in 4 round robin games had 11 points.
That's not bad for someone playing for Germany. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Germany always will upset one team in an international showcase, but they're never going to be the team that'll win like a medal, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who would have thought Sweden and Finland play in the quarterfinal game? Two hockey powerhouses. Just shame one of them had to lose.
Yeah, and then on top of it, Russia walks away again without a medal.
Mm-hmm. Love it. I love it.
Like, fuck Russia. Like, Finland absolutely get the bronze. I'd
Yeah.
rather Canada. I'd rather Canada get a medal than Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone's pretty happy that Russia stayed off the medal table again. One thing that I thought of before the show that I think would have changed the tournament a lot was if Sweden beat Finland. If
Yeah,
Sweden would have pulled off the win against Finland, because remember Sweden was up 2-0 in that game. Finland scored 3 goals in the third period and won 3-2. Um, if Sweden hadn't blown the lead and won that game against Finland, Sweden would have played US in the semifinal, and that would have been I think Sweden might have taken that game for sure.
against the U.S.
It would have been close. I think it would have been a lot closer than the U.S. Finland game was, because Sweden had they were kind of similar to Canada on the offensive side of things. They had a lot of guys that could put the puck in the net. Finland didn't really have, they had a great team, but they didn't really have those players that
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say, I guess, is Finland had success because they played together as a team and they knew how to gel as a team. And not saying Sweden didn't, but that's the factor that pushed Finland over the top and ended up beating Finland was or that Finland beat Sweden, sorry, because they all played together as a team. And I think
Yeah.
that was, they were a really good team to watch for sure.
No matter like what talent level Finland has, they always are a tough team to play, and they're always like I feel like a contender for a bronze at least.
Yeah, and you look at the medal count in World Juniors. Canada has 18 gold medals. U.S. has 13 on all 13 medals combined from gold, silver, and bronze. They just won their 5th gold medal as a country. So Canada has more gold medals than USA has combined. But get this: the last 5 times that the Canada has met USA in the gold medal game, US has won 4 of them, including 4 in a row. The last 4 games in a row, USA has taken over Canada in the gold medal game. So I think right now the U.S. is definitely Canada's biggest rivalry, if it wasn't already. And we got to find a way to beat USA in the gold medal game at the end of the day.
I think it's because it's so hyped up, like, oh, Canada is the powerhouse of hockey, that when like the U.S. is always shit on, like, oh, they're just not as good as Canada. And then like,
well, that's the thing, right?
Gold medal game, Canada like will choke, and then the U.S. will like win the gold for 4 in a row.
That's the thing, and like I honestly think that the United States national team, whether it be World Juniors or Olympics or World Hockey Championships, whatever it may be, United States as a country does not get enough recognition in the hockey world as they should. You think of hockey powerhouses for countries, the first ones that come to mind: Canada, Russia, Finland, Sweden. USA is kind of left behind, right? But after how well the U.S. played in that gold medal game, they definitely do deserve a lot more respect than they're given in the hockey world. And you think of some players like Jeremy Roenick, Brett Hall, all those guys. They're some of the greatest hockey players to ever play the game, and they're all American. And like there's some great hockey players to come out of the United States.
Yeah, and like a lot of people are from Minnesota, and Michigan. Like Brett Hall, Jeremy Roenick is from Mass.
Yeah.
Like who knows? The U.S. has a lot of improvement to go in hockey, but it seems like in the past 10 years they've made a big step.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So that kind of concludes our World Juniors recap. Again, United States gold, Canada silver, Finland beat Russia in the bronze medal game. So United States, Canada, and Finland on top of the World Juniors hockey world for this year anyways. Next year when Canada takes the gold medal back up north where it belongs. Okay, Tim, so we're going to kind of shift gears here to the NHL. Everyone that follows hockey is probably as excited as I am. NHL returns in 6 days, next week, Wednesday, first day of the season. This season, the 2020-2021 season, is very different in the fact that it will feature all interdivisional games, 4 divisions, North, West, Central, and East, and all the teams in each division will play against each other 8, 9, or 10 times. I want to kind of talk about the predictions for each division, which teams you think are going to make the playoffs in each division, and which ones you think have a long ways to go. So we're going to start with the North Division, the All-Canadian Division. First thing I want to mention before we get into predictions, BC, Alberta, and Quebec, and most recently Ontario have all approved their specific NHL teams to host games for this season. We're just waiting on Manitoba to approve the Jets, but 6 of the 7 Canadian teams have been approved by the provincial government to host games. So that's looking really good for the Canadian division. Now, Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. Which 4 of those teams do you think make the playoffs, and which 3 do you think will not?
Toronto, I definitely think is going to make the playoffs. Edmonton will make the playoffs. And then it's tough because you have Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg, which all have a strong case. And then Montreal has made some solid moves in the offseason.
And
So,
Ottawa.
and Ottawa, like, I think Ottawa will actually finish last, like everybody predicted, but I don't think they're going to be as much of a joke as people think they are.
You know, honestly, like I released my North Division predictions article probably about a week ago, and I had Montreal actually finishing in last. I just don't like. I think the acquisitions that Ottawa picked up in the offseason is going to be enough to push them at least into sixth spot in the division. I think they can win enough games to finish sixth. I had Montreal finishing last, but again, like Montreal's got some solid players. They made some great pickups. I mean, this whole division is probably the hardest one out of all four of them to predict because every single Canadian team has made solid pickups, solid acquisitions, and you just don't know how this one's gonna play out.
It's like Calgary, they picked up Markstrom. Vancouver, they have Holtby now and that.
Yeah.
They have Hellebuck, who just won the Vezina. Like, there's a lot of solid teams in that, like, 3 through 6 range, you know?
And honestly, you know what? I hate to say it because I'm an Oilers fan, but looking at these 7 Canadian teams, Martin says Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, and he's stuck between Vancouver and Winnipeg. Yeah, I agree with you there. I had Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver making it. But as I was saying, as much as I hate to say it because I'm an Oilers fan, when you look at the 7 Canadian teams, and I think Edmonton has the worst goalies in that division. Honestly, I do.
Yeah,
and I think the only reason why Edmonton makes the playoffs is because of their offense, and you know they improved on defense, but their goaltenders, they elected to stick with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. And you look at Calgary and like the other teams, like Calgary's got Markstrom, Vancouver's got Holtby, Winnipeg has a Vezina Trophy winner in Hellebuck, Montreal's got Price, Toronto's got Anderson, and Ottawa has Matt Murray now. I just think all those goaltenders are better than Koskinen or Smith.
Yeah, Edmonton is as far as Edmonton will go is as far as McDavid and Draisaitl will take them.
Yeah.
And yes, they improved on defense, so that'll be a help. But it's still up to those two on how far that team will go.
And Clefbaum being injured and out for the rest of the season does not help either. Luckily for Edmonton, I mean, we did pick up Tyson Barrie, who will help the team a lot. I've always admired the way that Tyson Barrie plays. He'll help on the power play for sure. But you know, I don't see Edmonton finishing first in the division. As much as I hate to say it, I think Toronto's just got that. They have that forward depth, and they did what they had to on defense. And I think Toronto's going to finish first in the division. Now, switching over to the Maple Leafs, news broke today that Joe Thornton will be playing left wing beside Matthews and Marner. So you have two of the biggest studs on the Maple Leafs team, Matthews and Marner, playing with 41-year-old Joe Thornton.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to turn out for the Leafs? I mean, Sheldon Keefe, the head coach of the Leafs, had a press conference and he said Joe Thornton was not the slowest guy on the ice. He can keep up with some of the young guys, but I mean, I just don't see 41-year-old Joe Thornton being able to keep up with Matthews and Marner.
Like in an ideal world, that works perfectly. You have like the old veteran that knows like so much with two young, like 23-year-old all-stars.
Yeah.
But there's no way a 41-year-old is going to be able to play the minutes night in and night out, especially with the way the season is set up with these guys, because I'm assuming that they're going to want to put him as the first line, you know?
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
Like, it's a good line. Like, Thornton's 6'4", 220, Matthews is 6'3", 220, and Marner is 6', 175. So, like, it's not like that line is small at all. It's just I don't see Thornton being able to play the minutes that Matthews and Marner are going to be able to play. So then what? gonna end up like fucking up the line systems and throwing different centers in if Thornton needs to go get like oxygen or an IV.
I mean that's just it, right? Like 41 years old, you're not what you used to be, right? Like obviously Thornton's going to get fatigued easier. That's just it. You got Matthews Marner playing 21, 22 minutes a game. There's no way in hell Joe Thornton will log 21, 22 minutes a game,
Yeah.
especially in a condensed season that we play 56 games in a matter of 3 months, right? So there's just no way that's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what the Leafs do there. Um, but other than that, like, Joe Thornton signed that 1-year contract with the Leafs, and he said Toronto like is his best option to win a cup. Honestly, like maybe Toronto wins the North Division, but
Yeah.
I don't think Toronto is there yet to win a Stanley Cup. I just don't think that they are.
The Toronto's gonna get past the first round because of the North Division. They're gonna be able to win the division.
Yeah, for sure. Heather says, "Do you think Ovechkin will take over Gretzky's record?" That's a great question. I think any shot that Ovechkin had to take over Wayne Gretzky's record was screwed up by COVID. If COVID hadn't happened, then maybe he would have had a shot. But I mean, Ovechkin's 36 years old. He's still 190 some goals away from the record. Unless he plays till he's 42, 43, I don't see it happening personally.
Yeah, it's definitely a stretch now. There was like a period of time where, yeah, if he played phenomenal for the next 4 to 5 years, he could get it. But then, like you said, COVID messed it all up. Because I feel like he has to slow down at some point. And how many times is he going to be able just to sit at the top of the circle and crank a slap shot into the back of the net?
Yeah.
How many goals is he away from Gretzky right now?
Like 191 or something.
So that's almost 50 goals a season for the next 4 years. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we say that now, but I mean, Ovechkin, he could surprise. He got 47 goals in a shortened season last year. He easily in an 82 game season could have hit 50 last season. So I mean, it is possible. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I personally don't see it happening.
Because you also have to think Washington is getting older as a team.
Yeah.
Like, as a team, they're not going to be as good as they always were. So it's going to be harder, even more for him to get more goals.
Yes, and kind of sticking on the topic of Washington here, I want to get your thoughts on this, Tim. Zdeno Chara in a Washington Capitals uniform, an
Yeah.
interdivisional team this year. So Washington, like Zdeno Chara, will face the Boston Bruins about 8 times this season. Is that going to be weird to you to see Chara in a Capitals uniform, or are you just happy he's gone?
It's not weird at all to see him in a Capital uniform because I don't view the Washington Capitals as like a rival. It's not like he's in a Montreal Canadiens or like a Philadelphia jersey. But I am pretty happy that he's gone because I feel we should have gotten rid of him like 4 to 5 years ago because in the past 4 to 5 years, he's just slowed down tremendously. And as someone who did play defense in hockey, I can't imagine being his partner because all he would do is just like hope that he has a reach and has a hard shot. And then his D partner has to make up for everything else on both sides of the ice.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a hit for the Bruins when it comes to locker room and leadership wise, but I have no doubt that Bergeron will be able to pick up the slack in that.
Yeah.
We needed to get rid of him, and we missed on the opportunity to trade him when he was at his best to get the most return, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. On that topic, Patrice Bergeron, was named the 20th captain in Boston Bruins history today. I mean, we all saw that coming. Was there really any doubt that Bergeron was not going to get the captaincy this year?
No way. It had to be Bergeron. And personally, I believe it should have been Bergeron right from the start. He was on the Bruins well before Chara even came to the Bruins.
Yeah.
And Bergeron was drafted Bruin, and he's got over 1,000 games played for the Bruins, 869 points, and a plus 201 plus minus, plus a Stanley Cup. I believe he like ties the record for most Selke trophies as a center.
Yeah.
And to me, he exemplifies what a Bruin is, and it's long overdue. But I get why Chara was able to hold the captain for so long.
Yeah, and um, I mean, that being said, now with Boston getting rid of Chara, Boston getting rid of Torrey Krug, we're going to kind of move over to the East Division now for this season. You got Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington, all in the same division. Which four of those teams do you think make the playoffs? Because there's some dang good teams in there.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Philly wins it. I I know we're taking a hit on defense in Boston, but Boston's got to make the playoffs for sure. But Pittsburgh and Washington, one of them is not going to make the playoffs, and I think the Islanders will get the other playoff spot.
Now, where do you stand on Buffalo? Because Buffalo, I wouldn't underestimate the Sabres either.
I feel like they're going to be right outside the playoffs, but like if they have an unbelievable season, then they'll get that fourth seed. It's just that division is going to be so tight. Like the Islanders, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, Boston, and then who knows with the Rangers, and then like you said, who knows with Buffalo? If Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel hit it off right, like Buffalo is a damn dangerous team.
And I mean, like the Rangers, they have Alexis Lafreniere. He has the possibility to really, really change up games. Artemi Panarin had 95 points last season. You know, it's scary to think that you could see Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, and possibly Alexis Lafreniere on the same line. That could be probably one of the most deadliest lines, other than the Boston Bruins' first line in that division.
And like, yeah, the Rangers lost Lundqvist, but he's not even playing this year due to that heart condition, which is terrible. But like, who do they have in net that's young? They have a couple young goalies in net that if they just go on a hot streak, who knows what the Rangers could do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be. I think one thing that we can both agree on is New Jersey is going to be god awful again. They get last in that division. I think everyone's kind of expecting that. But other than that, Philly's going to make it for sure. Islanders for sure. Boston for sure. And then, yeah, like you said, it's a toss up between Pittsburgh and Washington. Maybe Buffalo, maybe the Rangers. Who knows? Anything could happen in that division for sure.
Well, just think of it this way: this past playoffs in the bubble, Boston made the playoffs, Islanders made the playoffs, Rangers made the playoffs, Philly made the playoffs, Pittsburgh made the playoffs, Washington made the playoffs. And I believe Buffalo was right outside, like right behind the Rangers. So really, the only team that's far behind is New Jersey, and they didn't make really any moves, in my opinion, to like get them any further ahead. I believe they signed Corey Crawford.
Yeah. New Jersey has Corey Crawford, yeah.
But like, what's that gonna do? He's not the same goalie that he was when Chicago was winning cups.
I mean, that's just it. And I mean, Corey Crawford is a good goalie when he has a good team and in front of him, right? Like, there's New Jersey. Other than Corey Crawford, New Jersey really didn't pick up anyone special in the offseason. And they weren't very good last season. I don't see Corey Crawford making that much of a difference, especially in the division they're in. When you got powerhouses like Boston, Philly, Islanders, I just don't see New Jersey even coming close, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. It's just going to be interesting how like the Islanders, the Rangers, and Pittsburgh and Washington play out.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's going to be, I mean, to be honest with you, like all I'm really probably going to watch is the North Division because I'm in Canada. Canadian teams get a lot more airtime up here than American teams do. So, I mean, I will catch the odd West, Central, East Division games, but it's definitely going to be interesting. That East Division is probably going to be one of the, other than the North Division, one of the hardest divisions to predict for sure.
So before we move on to the next division, I just have to have your opinion. What's your thoughts on like each division being sponsored? Do you even give a shit or like?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I can't remember really what the sponsors were. I think one was Honda. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter. Like,
Yeah.
I know broadcasters are probably going to say, "Oh, this is in the Honda's West division," right? To me, it's just North, West, Central, East. I don't care about really about the sponsors. Um, that's kind of like if there was no COVID and like the regular divisions were sponsored. I wouldn't say like, oh, this is AT&T's Metropolitan Division. You know what I mean? I would just say it's the Metropolitan Division.
And to me, it's just because like they have to make money somehow. Like
Yeah,
they're taking a
yeah.
hit so bad, they have to make money somehow, and everybody knows what the divisions are. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and they are taking a hit. Um, this is actually interesting. I'm going to touch on something real quick here. Um, most of the teams in the league this year will not have an attendance. Florida Panthers have announced that they're going to have a capacity of up to 5,000 players or 5,000 fans in attendance for each home game. Who would have thought that the Florida Panthers would lead in the league in attendance?
Well, that's gonna can Florida Panthers even get 5,000 fans in attendance?
That's the thing. That's nothing really changes for Florida because they got 5,000 on a good day. But
Holy shit!
where do you see Florida placing in the Central Division though? Because they've made some pretty good pickups. They've also got rid of quite a few guys, but in that Central Division, you've got Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa. Tampa, I think, is a given. They're going to get first in that
Yeah,
division. Like, no brainer there. Florida
even
lost. Go
even
ahead.
without drop.
Yeah, well, exactly. Um, and Florida, obviously, they lost Mike Hoffman. He signed a professional tryout with the St. Louis Blues. Um, one thing that the Florida Panthers have, I want to go back to the World Juniors real quick. Both goalies in that gold medal game, Devin Levi and Spencer Knight, both prospects of the Florida Panthers, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like, Florida, like, they have a duel for Bobrovsky's successor, that's for sure.
absolutely. And that division, like, I don't think it's one of the stronger ones in the league. Tampa, like you said, is definitely going to take it. But then you have like Dallas. They'll probably get second. Carolina's always solid the past couple of years, so I could see them being third. Florida, Nashville fighting for fourth. Chicago, they're just taking a hit right now because Kirby Doc broken wrist. Jonathan Pays not starting the season.
Yeah.
Columbus, they've lost a lot of players over the past couple of years. Detroit, yeah, Steve Yzerman is doing some good things, but are they really going to be able to get into like the top four? So, like, Detroit, I think, is probably going to be fighting with Columbus for sixth or seventh, and then Chicago will be in fifth. And you're looking at Tampa, Carolina, Florida, and Nashville.
Carolina could surprise, though.
Yeah.
Carolina, I mean, like, yeah, I do agree with you there. Tampa first, Dallas second, Carolina probably third or fourth, and then a toss up between Florida and Nashville. But Detroit, I think, could also surprise. Steve Yzerman made some big pickups this year, and I don't think Detroit's. I mean, they're obviously a laughing stock last season, but I don't think they're going to be as much of a joke this year. They're not going to make playoffs, but Detroit could definitely surprise.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of right now in the same boat as Ottawa. Everybody expects them to be like pieces of shit, but I don't think they're going to be easy wins, especially with the way this season is going to be played. You're going to play each team like what, 8 or 9 times?
Sorry, what was that, Tim?
Like, everybody expects Ottawa and Detroit to be like pieces of shit this year, but they made great moves. And with the way that this NHL season is going to be played, you're playing each team 8 or 9 times. So,
Yeah.
like, you're going to learn how to beat these teams by the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is probably in this is probably a season where, when you have interdivisional games where you're playing each team 8 or 9 times a season, you probably have to beat each team a good 4 or 5 times in order to be considered for playoffs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Um, And I'm pumped for 10 Battle of Albertas.
Yeah, wait for those nights. You're fucking
Yeah. Okay, so last division, and then we'll get into some NHL news real quick. Last division is the West Division. This one is also going to be interesting because this is going to be a division that could definitely see some teams surprise. But you have Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, LA, Minnesota, San Jose, St. Louis, and Vegas. Now, who takes first in this division? Do you think Colorado or Vegas? It could be a toss-up between either one of those teams.
Colorado, I think, easily.
You think?
Yeah, I think it's time for them to get first. And then it's going to be Vegas, then St. Louis. I think that's the clear top 3 teams in that division.
Yeah. And then who would you think would get fourth? Arizona. What do you think? What do you think Arizona would?
Arizona probably fourth because is Minnesota, San Jose, LA, or Anaheim gonna do worse than Arizona? I think they are. I think Arizona's a better team than those 4 teams.
I mean, that's hard to say, right? Like Quentin Byfield will be with the LA Kings this year. Byfield did have that 1 6-point game in the World Juniors. He definitely impressed. I mean, one player definitely is not going to make or break a team. But last season was the first season that no California teams made the playoffs in probably 15, 20 years, I think. I don't think that either one of those California teams did anything to really solidify a playoff spot this year. But honestly, I think Minnesota could take Arizona because Minnesota has their new GM in Bill Guerin, and some of the moves that Minnesota made. I mean, their biggest mistake was they traded Devin Dubnyk to the Sharks, and now Minnesota ends up playing the Sharks in their division.
That's gonna be interesting as hell because
Mm-hmm.
I never thought Minnesota and the Sharks would be in the same division. But
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, Minnesota would probably be able to give Arizona a run for their money, but there's no way in hell any California team is going to the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. Now, we're going to kind of switch gears to which teams do you think would be allowed fans?
I feel like that.
Florida has already said that they're going to have 5,000 fans in attendance per game. Do you think Boston's in a place to host fans, or what are your thoughts there? I don't think anyone in California will because California's got all those restrictions. The San Francisco 49ers can't have home games right now. So I don't think any team in California will have fans.
My personal opinion on this is that it greatly depends on the region and the demographics of the region.
Mm-hmm.
Florida this entire time has been one of the looser states, so it does not surprise me that the Panthers are going to have 5,000 fans in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not be surprised if Tampa's right behind them. You have to look at teams in the United States in terms of how loose their COVID regulations have been throughout the process, because places like Boston, New York, and California, they've had terrible numbers, so they're not gonna allow fans in at any time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. This season, I've kind of already written off. There's not gonna be fans in many teams. Dallas, I wouldn't be surprised. Down in Texas, Nashville, and Tennessee, a lot of the southern, maybe western teams that don't have a lot of COVID cases will probably try to get the fans back in first. But no teams in big cities like Detroit, Chicago, LA, Boston, New York are gonna get fans anytime soon.
Now, the way I think of it, though, is the NHL, desperate to make money somehow, they sold the naming rights, like you said, to each division. Do you think the NHL could push these teams to host these fans in order to get those ticket sales up?
No.
Or do you think they kind of write off this season? I'm just trying to think of other ways that the NHL could go about trying to make some money for the league. Because if you have no fans in any of these cities, you're not going to be making any money on ticket sales, right?
No, you're not at all, and you're not going to be making any money on concessions, on any like merchandise stores. Like the thing is in the U.S., if it was any other sport like football, baseball, basketball, they would be pushing, pushing, pushing because there's so much money involved. The
Right.
NHL is such a small league compared to it in the U.S. that one, they don't have the fan following that Canada has, so there's not necessarily like yes, teams will sell out every night, but it's nowhere close to what Canada has. In my opinion, I'm surprised that Canada is the one like that still has two provinces that are fighting, not even allowing games to be played because of how big hockey is up there.
And not only that, but you look at the other three major sports leagues, the NHL arenas are among the smallest.
Yeah,
Because, a sellout crowd in the NHL is about 18,000 people. 18,000 people at an NFL game is hardly anyone. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So not only is the NHL a smaller market, but they also, like, I will preach this till the day I die. Connor McDavid is the highest paid player in the NHL right now. He makes 12.5 million a year. And you have an NFL player or a basketball player that makes 12, or a baseball player for that matter, that makes 12.5 million a year. That's nothing.
That's a backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So,
especially in baseball, like that's a
mhm.
backup.
And I do think that's why the NFL and the MLB are pushing for, and the NBA, like the NBA, look how quick the NBA got started, because there is so much money involved. Like, LeBron James, who makes 40 million a year, they have to pay the man somehow, right? Um, so that's, I mean, obviously, like, I don't know what the NHL is going to do about fans for that matter, but it's going to be interesting to see, like, if they sell the rights to anything else. They got their broadcasting rights, they got all that kind of stuff. Um, there is. I'm going to switch gears again. There's one more topic I want to talk about in the next 15 minutes. This is a really interesting one. NHL general managers are actually concerned, Tim, that they're not going to be able to make trades in the in season, because all the games are strictly interdivisional. You don't want to trade in interdivisional because you don't want to help other teams out, but at the same time you won't get to scout all these other potential teams. Like, for instance, in the North Division, you're not going to be able to scout American teams for players. So how do you navigate around these in-season trades? And do you think they happen? Do you think anything goes down for trades, or what are your thoughts on that? How do you think the NHL will navigate around that?
Well, did they decide on like what the date would be for the trade deadline based on like this year's season?
I
Like, is
don't
there
I don't recall hearing anything about a trade deadline.
because who knows if they even thought about like making trades? Because the whole thing is, yeah, you can trade someone from the east to the west, no problem. But if you trade someone east to north, yeah, you can get them over the border, but they're probably going to have to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks.
That's the
So,
thing.
like, and the NHL is not going to be like, oh, let's take 2 to 3 weeks off after the trade deadline so people who went over the border can quarantine. They're like, they want to get the season over with. So hopefully next season can start in October like it normally does.
And that's the thing, right? Like, for that reason, I don't see it being that much of a problem. Like, if a West team wants to make a trade with a Central team, they're all in the U.S., so I mean, they wouldn't have to quarantine. But it makes it that much more difficult for a Canadian team in the North Division to try to pull a deal off with an American team, because, like you said, they're going to have to quarantine because they're in a different country, right?
Yeah.
So, for that reason, Canadian NHL team GMs are going to have their hands full, because especially teams like Ottawa and Montreal, who I don't think are going to really be competing with those other teams in the division, they're going to want to get better. But you also don't want to pull off a trade with, like, the Edmonton Oilers that makes the Oilers a better team, because you still have to play them, 5, 6 more times.
Yeah, and like especially if you're one of those teams that you know you're gonna play in the playoffs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
say, like Toronto is not gonna want to trade with Edmonton.
Yeah.
Like when the chances are is they're gonna meet in the playoffs on top of all of those times in the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, like it's going to be so interesting to see. I don't even know if there is a trade deadline this year or what's going on with that. When is the NHL set to it's done in May, right? And then playoffs go till August, and then they're going to have a short off season, I believe.
I think
Um,
I think they're hoping for like it's to be done by the end of July.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it is going to be a shorter off season because in order for this next season to start in October, like they want it to, you got to open up training camps probably beginning of September. If the season goes till the end of July, you're only going to have a month of an off season, right? So, um, that being said, teams are going to get fatigued and wore down a lot easier. Expect this season to have a lot more injuries because, like I said before, this is 56 games condensed from January to May, beginning of May. So you have 3 full months: February, March, April, and then you have like the last half of January and the beginning of May. You have to fit 56 games in those like 4 months. So, I mean, 56 divided by 4, you're looking at a good
That's
15, 16 games per month, right?
that's
So
like a
that's a
game every other day.
yeah. So I mean, you can look for teams to get a lot more fatigued and a lot more injured, because obviously the more tired you are, the easier it is to get injured. Um, so that's going to be something that a lot of teams will have to deal with. And if teams get to the point where they have 5 or 6 of their starting players injured, they're going to be wanting to look to make trades with other teams to fill those gaps, right? But it's going to be so hard for these teams to do it with all these COVID guidelines, especially if you're a Canadian team. You're going to have to start looking to your AHL teams or something like that. But another thing to consider is like what happens when these teams get injured, that 8, 9 of their players go down. Like, where do you go from there?
And the other thing too, like that's insane. Like what you're saying is you're gonna be so short-handed that you can quickly lose 5 to 7 games, maybe even 10 games in a row. But the other thing too is yeah, there's gonna be more injuries due to just like the schedule being a game every other night. But you're playing the same teams like 8 or 9 times a season. There's
Yeah,
gonna be so much more injuries just because you're killing each other by the end of the season.
yeah,
Like, it was bad enough when the Oilers and Flames are playing each other like 4 or 5 times a season, or like interdivision teams that hated each other playing each other 4 or 5 times a season. Now you're doubling that in
yeah,
half the time frame.
yeah. Now that brings up another good question, Tim. Do you think there's going to be less fighting this season for that exact reason?
Less fighting, I feel like there would be more, even though the game is heading in a direction of less fighting. I feel like if I was playing the same guy 8 or 9 times in a 56 game season, I would want to kill him by the end of it.
But that being said, though, the more times you fight, the more susceptible you are to injury, and these teams might be trying to avoid that injury factor, especially if you're a Canadian team, because you get so depleted on the roster, like you said, you lose 8, 9 games. That could dramatically affect your placement in the standings, right? So, for that reason, do you think there could be less fighting so that teams don't want to get injured
I
to
could
try to?
I could see that, but like all I'm thinking is like the emotion and the energy in the games. Like in the moment, Cassian isn't gonna be thinking, "Oh, I might get injured if I pound Kachuk's head in." Like he's not gonna be thinking that.
Right. Martin just actually popped up there. He had a comment. Trade deadline's April 12th. I did not know that. Thank you, Martin. So the trade deadline is April 12th. So I mean, the NHL is giving teams chances to make these trades, but it's really going to be interesting to see kind of what goes down with those trades for that exact reason, right? Because you still have those border restrictions. The border's not going to open up anytime soon. So I mean, with the trade deadline coming in on April 12th, um, where do you go from there? Really, like,
Yeah.
I would try to avoid these interdivisional trades as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like the way the season is set up, it kind of reminds me of like old school NHL where it was like 4 main divisions and each team won a division and they went to the playoffs, which is exactly what they're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So the Dallas Stars have just announced that Joe Pavelski will miss the beginning of the season.
That's a hit. Because
That's a hit for sure. It just popped up.
because they also lost Corey Perry too, so that's a hit, right?
Yeah, Corey Perry goes to Montreal. How do you think Corey Perry does in Montreal?
I feel like at this point in his career, is he really looking to do much? I feel like he's just gonna be like that veteran second, third line player, you know?
Mm-hmm. That makes me nervous as an Oilers fan, having Perry play with the Canadians, because I hate Corey Perry. I hate him back from 2017 when Edmonton played the Ducks in the second round of the playoffs that year. I've always hated Corey Perry, and now you got to play him again 9 times out of the season. So, I mean, it's a good pickup for Montreal because Perry is a good player. He can still put the puck in the net even though he's 36, 37 years old. But he also gets under your skin a lot. Good pickup for Montreal. They need a guy like that. I'm just looking forward to, like I said, the Battle of Alberta 10 times.
I mean, we're less than a week away from the NHL season coming back, so it's about to really get some hot. Like, even no fans is going to be a lot better than what we have right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, real quick, Tim, in these last 5 minutes before we head off here, each division, North, West, Central, and East, pick one team from each division to win the entire division and pick your final four for the playoffs.
Fuck. Put me on the spot here. Okay, I'm looking at the. I'm gonna go. Tampa's gonna get it again. Tampa's going to the semifinals. They're just too good. Between Boston and Philly, I gotta go Homer and go Boston.
Really?
In the Colorado in the North, I'll give you Edmonton.
You're gonna go Edmonton over Toronto. Wow.
Yeah, because I don't trust Toronto until they show up in the playoffs. I am not taking them. So you got it. I'll give you Edmonton.
So Tim has Edmonton versus Colorado in the Western Conference Final, and Boston and Tampa setting up the Eastern Conference Final. That's a good old Atlantic Division rivalry there, Boston and Tampa. That could be good to see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with Edmonton for the North. I just think there's McDavid and Draisaitl are gonna be hungry. Like you, I don't trust Toronto. They're gonna be good in the season, and then they're gonna lose first round again, like they always do. Calgary could also. I would love to. There's nothing I would love more than to see Edmonton and Calgary meet in the playoffs. But I'm gonna say Edmonton in the North. West, I'm actually gonna go out and say Vegas.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say Vegas just because Vegas has so much playoff experience. They lost out to Dallas last year. They're gonna want to avenge that loss. I think Edmonton and Vegas meet in the Western Conference Final, and then Central, Tampa. I'm gonna say Tampa, and then the East. I was actually gonna go ahead and say the Islanders.
What makes you say the Islanders? Like,
I just think the biggest thing for the Islanders is Barry Trotz.
and the Islanders are deadly because of Barry Trotz. They have a solid lineup, and their GM Lou Lamoriello,
Yeah,
been there and he's doing it again. But to me, it was either between Philly and Boston in that division, and I just had to take home ice and take Boston.
But I mean, Philly and Boston meeting in the playoffs, like even in like the East Division Finals, Boston and Philly, like that is like must watch hockey almost.
I'll tell you this season's setup is making for some unbelievable playoff hockey because. And then the 4 final teams who have never played each other all year are gonna be in the playoffs. Like, it's gonna be nuts.
And that's the one thing, right? Like you have the winner of the North against the winner of the West, and then the winner of the Central against the winner of the East. So that's the thing, right? You go into these Western Conference Finals. You're playing a team that you have never seen all year.
Yeah.
You have to rely solely on watching tapes and videos and everything like that. So it's definitely going to be interesting. It's going to make for some good hockey because normally each team plays the other one at least once every season. You know what you're getting into, but going into that deep in playoffs, meeting a team that you've never played the entire season, it's going to make for some very, very, very good hockey. That is for sure.
Absolutely.
And real quick, Tim, early Stanley Cup winner.
Jesus Christ. Well, based off my 4, it's going to be between I don't see Boston being able to beat Tampa again. So Tampa's, I guess, going to go back, and then Colorado will beat Edmonton easily. So Colorado versus Tampa. Colorado.
You think Colorado wins the Cup?
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I would love Colorado to win it. I'm going to say Vegas. So Vegas finally gets the Cup.
So it's the same division.
Yeah. Yeah, the West Division's got some powerhouses for sure. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens this season, guys. NHL starts Wednesday, January 13th. Make sure you mark your calendars. Mine's been marked ever since it was announced. I'm sure yours has too, Tim. And we will see you guys next Thursday, the 14th, where we'll have a full day of NHL action under our belt. There'll be more analysis, more news, everything like that. We'll see you guys next Thursday night. And we have Behind the Basket starting in just a few minutes, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that.